What's the most important component of a gaming mouse? 2 months ago, if you asked me to compare the value of every part of one, it might have looked like this. Shape is the most important, with weight close behind, then the internals and everything else afterwards. If you asked me to do the same today, I would put something like this. So what caused this change? Compared to my previous main mouse, the G-Wolves HTX, the OP1we is worse on paper in every single way. It weighs 60 grams instead of 40. It has a more outdated sensor and doesn't have 4K Hz polling rate, meaning it has worse motion and click latency, and yet I can't stop using it. So what's going on? Over the past couple years, I've tried so many shapes to try and find something that fit perfectly for me. And while mice have come close to that aspiration of perfection, none have really been exactly what I was looking for. I've tried most of the popular options, but each of them had their own downsides for me. The GPX was a great entry point, but was far too large overall. The HTS Plus felt great in terms of length, and the back hump was really good for stability, but was slightly too wide for me. The HTX had the same issues with width, despite being perfect in every other way, and the Starlight 12 was just too short, even though they got the width right. So what makes the OP1 any different? In my eyes, there are two main approaches to making a mouse smaller. The first and most common is only decreasing the length. Looking at the HTX against the GPX shows this nicely. Even though it's far shorter and might feel a bit thinner because the mouse curves in towards the top sooner, it's actually almost the same width at the base, which is where I hold the mouse. The Starlight 12 demonstrates a second approach, where the small is just a 1-to-1 downscale of the Starlight Medium. This approach didn't really work for me either though, as the sides being scaled evenly meant that my fingers didn't quite fit along them with how I hold the mouse. Despite starting out as a scaled down XM1, the OP1 takes a third approach. It's about the same length as the Starlight Medium while being slightly thinner than the small, and it fits like a glove. The length being kept longer should make it more comfortable for people with larger hands, and the thinner width makes it feel amazing for people with hands like mine. It's the first time I've picked up a mouse and instantly thought, this is perfect for me. For people with smaller hands and a similar grip style to mine, I don't think there's a better shape on the market right now. The influence the XM1 had on the development of the mouse is still fairly visible, namely in the positioning and shape of the back hump, which offers a lot of stability for claw grip users. That being said though, a fair few distinctions formed during production. The most noticeable of these is the sides. The XM1s had a pretty strong slant to them, which pulled your fingers into a more angled position. This, combined with the mouse flaring out at the front, made it almost exclusively suited for aggressive claw. Both of these have been changed on the OP1, with the angled sides being toned down and the width staying relatively consistent on the front half of the mouse. Both of these changes, along with the smaller width overall, make it feel a lot more comfortable in hand for me with aggressive and relaxed claw, as well as fingertip. I think this would apply to people with larger hands as well. It feels a lot more mindfully designed than the XM1 did, and I think it's just a much better shape overall. This combination of features and changes from the original XM1 shape provides a mix of comfort and stability that I don't think any mouse has given me before. After trying the OP1, every other mouse feels too wide or too short or just wrong in some way. This comfort the OP1 offers has actually led to me playing better as well. I didn't expect it to, especially due to it being a downgrade all around in terms of specs from the HTX 4K, but both my tracking and flicks felt a lot sharper on this mouse than before, which I can only attribute to the mouse fitting my hand a lot better than the HTX did. In terms of quality, the mouse is pretty close to perfect. The clicks feel satisfying and snappy, the stock skates glide well, the software is easy to use, and the coating is the best I've felt on any mouse. All around, the build quality is just stellar. I'm pretty confident that this mouse could last me 5 or more years, which is something that I can't say for the HTX. This quality is a core focus of EndGameGear's mice, and while it's greatly appreciated, some of what I liked about the HTX is missing here due to the heavy emphasis placed on high quality. The first and most obvious thing to discuss is the weight. The HTX cut a fair bit in terms of quality to reach that 40 gram mark, making sacrifices the OP1 doesn't. And while the OP1's 58 grams is far from heavy, being about the same as the Superlight, as that mass is concentrated into a smaller area, it ends up feeling noticeably more dense. For a while, I thought that low weight was more of a trade-off than an objective advantage, losing out on stability for a gain in mobility. Trying the HTX changed my mind on that, and going back to the OP1 reminds me of why. You can always train and improve your stability. You can't make up for the mobility loss of a heavier mouse. Because of that, low weight in mice is something that's pretty important to me. You wouldn't think a 20 gram difference would be that noticeable, but I feel like I have to put in a pretty significant amount of extra force to start and continue movements on the OP1 versus the HTX. The HTX is so light that the movements feel completely intuitive. It's like an extension of my arm. The extra weight from the OP1 is a big change from that, where the added force required does create a small disconnect between my mind and my mouse, even though the shape feels better. I think the next and potentially even more important thing to talk about is the clicks. While the clicks do feel satisfying, I think most of that is due to them being far heavier than most. This, again, ties back to their testament to quality and longevity. The switches being heavy is primarily due to them being opticals, which don't have issues with double clicking. While these switches will last a long time and provide good feedback, I don't think they work well for aiming, especially with grips that don't make a lot of palm contact. The clicks are heavy to the point where I have to apply so much pressure that there is visible shaking when I have to click, removing any potential stability benefits from the higher weight. I struggle with single fire weapons and dynamic clicking tasks way more on this mouse than any other, and I use a relaxed claw grip. This is a grip that encourages stability and generally doesn't need the lightest clicks, but these are heavy to the point where it still throws off my aim. Because of this, I really struggle to recommend the mouse in its stock form to fingertip grip users, even though the shape works brilliantly for it. The shape not only has comfortable and flexible positions for your thumb, ring, and pinky to sit along the side, but also has enough clearance to micro-adjust with your fingertips. But the weight of the clicks completely negates that for me and forces me to use primarily claw. Taking all that into account, let's go back to that comparison with the HTX. 60 grams versus 40, 3370 versus 3395, 1K versus 4K Hz. But like I said, I prefer the OP1. Shape really is that important to me, and EndGameGear taking a new approach to designing shapes for small hands and creating something truly unique is greatly appreciated. It allows the mouse to stand up to and, in my opinion, surpass the competition without all their bells and whistles. To zoom out for a moment, there's a trend in the mouse industry at large currently where the companies that make mice don't design their own shapes, but instead buy them from other companies. There is a lot of effort that goes into making a good shape, from research and development to testing to tooling and so much more, and by skipping over these steps, these companies can save a lot of time and money. This is also probably why that method of scaling down shapes for a small version is so common. It's far cheaper to scale the existing shape down instead of buying an entirely new one. This, combined with using Compex's provided firmware for the internals of the mouse, cuts out a lot of the work that goes into development, allowing them to release products much faster and potentially at a lower cost. The downside of this is that they aren't getting the most out of those internals in terms of performance and don't have the best shapes because of their lack of time spent fine-tuning them. By taking the time to properly implement their tech and design their own unique shape, EGG can release a mouse that still performs well with worse tech than its competitors while also being far more comfortable, all at a low cost. On the note of value, the OP1 stands out there in my eyes too. It makes far less compromises on features compared to other mice at this price point, and what you do lose by choosing the OP1 is a side effect of EGG's focus on quality, not them cutting features to hit a weight goal. This is compounded by the mouse's longevity. Its build quality ensures that you'll get your money's worth. But where this mouse truly stands head and shoulders above the competition is the shape. It shows that putting in the work to design something truly unique is still possible in such a saturated market, and it makes the OP1 very easy to recommend. So that's all my thoughts on the mouse stock, but this video would be seriously missing something if I didn't talk about EGG's dedication to modability. It's exceptionally easy to take apart the OP1 due to the screws along the base being exposed. You can just unscrew them and pop the mouse right open. The mouse features hot swappable switches, and while they are opticals so any old switch won't fit, EGG does sell lighter switches on their website which honestly feel really nice and negates a lot of my criticism earlier about the clicks. If this still isn't enough, one of EGG's employees told me about this third-party hot swap PCB which lets you use any mechanical switch. I love this kind of encouragement for modding from a company, acknowledging that their product isn't perfect for everyone, and giving people the tools to make it perfect is just amazing. I think this mouse has been really slept on by a lot of people. If you're looking for a smaller mouse, or you just want to support a company willing to put the work in to innovate, I strongly recommend the OP1we.